Hi, this is Dr. MJ coming to you from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. This is the Women in Dentistry podcast, where we feature women in dentistry making waves and leading the industry through the next decade. I am your host, Dr. Mary Jane Hanlon, a former dental assistant, dental hygienist, and now dentist. I am very pleased to introduce you today to Dr. Mona Patel. Dr. Patel practices in Abington, Pennsylvania. Her commitment to excellence started at entering the University of Birmingham Queen Elisabeth Dental School at the age of 17 and obtaining her bachelor's degree of dental surgery at the age of 21. Dr. Patel practiced in England a short time until she moved to the United States of America in 1992. In order to pursue her career in America, she attended the University of Pennsylvania Dental School, where she obtained her doctorate of dental medicine. During this time, she was director of the preclinical program for past students. She also served as clinical instructor for the final year dental students. She's co-founder of Dynamic Dental Divas, an all-women study group. The women's study group is designed to help female dentists advance and develop their knowledge and techniques. Dr. Patel started this group with a focus on health, wellness, and comprehensive dentistry. It is now my pleasure to bring you to my interview with Dr. Mona Patel. Mona, I am so excited to have you on the show today, and I can't wait to share your experiences with the audience. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really appreciative of your time, and obviously at the end of a long day, for you to come and share your story with me is a lot to ask, so I appreciate that. So thank you so much. So if you wouldn't mind, please start by telling us a little bit how you got into dentistry.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to our channel, and also don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And it's my pleasure to be on here and to be able to share my story. And I think what you're doing is really amazing. So yeah, wow, my story. I decided to become a dentist at the early age of 13. And it was the reason that I decided I wanted to do dentistry was because I came from a very medical family. Everyone in my family was a doctor or is a doctor, including my father and my grandfather and my father's brothers, my mother's brothers. So, and I was like, well, I like medical, but I don't want to be on call like my father, and I'm a woman and I will want a family and I want to have work-life balance. So at the age of 13, I was already thinking like that. But so I know, right? And I'm like thinking back and thinking, where was this thought process coming from? But, at the age of 13, that's what I did. And I actually went to dental school at the age of 17 because I grew up in England. And so you're probably wondering how the heck am I here? So I'll kind of delve into my story a little bit. I was actually born in Africa, in Uganda. And I'm of Indian descent. But it's very, very common, that a lot of Indian people settled in places like Kenya, Uganda. So my grandfather settled in a little town called Masaka, which was just outside of Kampala, the capital. And he was the doctor there. And he was also the dentist there. And I found that out later.
Wow, he was a dentist too?
Yes, but I will get into that story.
I'm sure that's a long, complicated story.
So I was born in Kampala and, we lived in Uganda. And at that time, my dad was actually studying medicine and he was actually studying medicine in England. So, he would come and visit, but we really didn't see much of him. And my mom was living with my, grandparents, her in-laws, and we had a big family. And, I was brought up in a lot of love and, lots of interactions with family members. And then with Uganda, Idi Amin happened. And, that's where people started leaving. Just because it wasn't safe, and my grandfather tried to hold out till the last minute, and apparently, and I don't remember this because I was 3 years old. It was the middle of the night. leave everything, the house, the cars, everything. And, my mom and I found ourselves, on a plane heading towards England, and we joined Dad. And Dad, by that time, was just finishing up his studies and had just gotten a place in a little practice in Warwickshire, which is the Midlands. It's in England, right in the middle, the Midlands. And he actually practiced there for 48 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so he was there, and I grew up there. And we once we were there, we settled into life there. English education is a little different, so you go right into medical school and dental school right from high school. So I was already a year ahead. So I actually went to dental school when I was 17. And I'd actually just turned 17. I turned 17 in June, and I started dental school in September. Yeah. And dental school in England at that time was 4 years, only 4 years. Yeah. So there I was at the age of 21, set loose in the world as a dentist at the age of 21. And it was interesting because at that point I had no life skills. I didn't even know how to talk to a person. I literally would go down, my head would sort of like be looking at the floor, and I'd mumble, "Hello, Mr. Smith, I'm Dr. Patel, and I'm going to extract a tooth." No connection.
I'm sure that evoked a lot of confidence at the time.
Yes. So, I practiced there for about a year and a half at an English practice, which was really national health based. So, we really didn't do any cosmetic work. It was either patients chose what the government would cover and extract teeth, dentures, fillings and fillings, amalgams and things like that. Well, in the meantime, after I graduated dental school, truly in Indian tradition, which is no longer the way. And my two daughters, I have a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old, are definitely not going to do, what we did in the past. Yeah. And so mom and dad were like, "Hey, time for you to get settled. You've got your degree. Now it's time for you to get married." And, they cast the net far and wide, in the community. And somehow I was introduced to my husband, and my husband actually lived in America. And yeah.
It's a big transition, especially if your parents are still in England.
Oh, huge transition. And not just because, there's so many layers of that. There's so many differences in culture just from Western England to America, and then I also went from a pretty, modern Indian family to a very traditional Indian family. So, there's a lot of, changes that I had to make and, go through. But so I was introduced to my husband, and it was just like this little, chemistry boom. We met like 3 times before we were actually married. So,
wow.
Yeah.
But you liked him right away, which is wonderful.
I liked him right away. I also thought he was pretty darn cute for an Indian guy.
Nice. Even better.
So I think, so that was, I think, one of the big reasons. But there was, just this instant chemistry. And so, and we've been married 29 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I got married, I moved here, and I knew for sure that I was still going to be a dentist. So I had researched all of that. So when we decided to get married, he'd actually come to meet my parents the first time, and that was in March of 92. And his parents came too. And so they said, "Okay, well, we don't believe in long engagement, so we just got register married." And then our wedding date was set in August. Our Indian wedding date was set in August. So in the meantime, I was like, okay, well, So I studied for the national boards for America. And at that time, they let me go to Chicago to their corporate offices, the American Dental Association, and I was able to sit boards 1 and 2 at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, so I did that in May, got my national boards, passed those, and I was like, okay, great, got married, and then I started to apply to dental schools. And I say dental schools, the only choice really in my area was University of Pennsylvania. So I applied there, and luckily I got in because it was the only school that I applied to. And I started, I did the 2-year PASS program for foreign dental people. And at the same time, a year later, while I was still there, I ended up being the co-director of the preclinical program for the incoming foreign dentists. And then as I was graduating, I got to be on the clinical floor as clinical faculty.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. Good for you.
Yeah, so I think it was actually my first taste of sharing knowledge. And now when I think back on it, I realize how much I really enjoy being able to help somebody else not make the same mistakes that I did, or just pass on, our clinical tips and tricks, because what we do, it, maybe a small percentage of the time it goes perfectly, but most of the time it doesn't. And you have to have those solutions, and you can only learn those by seeing or having someone with experience pass them on. And so, that's what I do now. 29 years as a dentist, 26 years it will be that I've been at this practice, which I actually recently sold just before COVID. So I sold it at my 25th. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, tell me a little bit more about that. So did you start a practice from scratch?
No, so I was so fortunate. I've been really fortunate in my dental career to be so supported by so many great mentors and people who have showed me so many good things about dentistry. So when I graduated from Penn, I actually was hired at 3 practices, and all 3 practices were fee for service. And they were looking for an associate, but they didn't want to commit to someone until they had them there for a little short time. So I actually ended up working 6 days a week, and I was 2 days at each practice trying to figure out where, what my place was. And there was this one practice that I just kept feeling like it was home. And even though the owner doctor, Bill, was actually really scary. I mean, the first couple of times that I was there, they didn't have patients for me. So I thought, okay, I'll just take out my book and I'll start reading until my next patient's there. And he came up to me and he goes, oh no, you put that book away. If you're here, you're going to come into the room and you're going to watch me. And it was the best thing he ever did, because I learned how to talk to patients. I watched and I observed, and I learned so much just from that. So yeah, and then it ended up that he had a partner who unfortunately had a genetic heart disease and needed a heart transplant. So he had a heart transplant at Temple University back in 1995. And so I took over his half of the practice as an associate. And then Bill decided he didn't want to ever be caught with a practice when he was close to retiring and not have a way out. So he said, you buy it. And I was like, okay, I'm 3 years in as an associate. If I don't buy it, where do I go? I already know patients. And I know, the kind of dentistry that's being done here, and it's great because he went to Pankey. It was all Pankey, aligned. And so I went to my husband, and he was like, "You want to buy it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not? Like, everyone in my family owns a medical practice, so I'm not going to work for someone for the rest of my life. So I'm just going to buy the practice." So he was like, "Okay," and that's what I did. And I had gotten the worst financing terms, like interest rates were really high, everything. But I bought the practice. And Bill, God bless him, he stayed on for about 6 years. And I bought the practice while I was pregnant with my second child.
Wow.
And I bought the practice back in 99, and she was born in June of 2000. I bought in December of 99. So I bought the practice, and then that's when reality hit, because so many things that I did not know. I was the associate and my team was lovely. And then I was the owner, and in my back then it was a staff. Now I have a team, but then the staff were like, you're still the associate in their heads, right? The owner, Bill, was still the owner in his head. And as I started to step into ownership and realize that I don't want to practice with a book to write appointment times in and then erase the name if they cancel to call and pencil them in another day, I wanted software. I wanted electronic
Record
management. Yeah. And so I bought that in, and, and that's when I saw that I had an uphill battle in converting the team to technology and to what's happening that was new in dentistry at that time. And it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. It was also a fee-for-service practice that traditionally was two male dentists and it was a very preppy office. Not a lot of diversity there either. And, suddenly it's like, there's this young woman, but not only is she young, she's a woman, but she's got brown skin. And so I had to, in my head, I thought, okay, I have to prove myself and I have to be better than anybody. So I just went on this road of just trying to be the best that I could be. And, I learned lots of lessons. I, made lots of mistakes, but I ended up having a very really fulfilling, rewarding career with a practice that's equipped with such great technology. And the great thing is that as those changes happened, and at that time, Bill, after about 5 years, he retired, and he comes in and he'll, when we go out for lunch, he will be like, I'm really proud of you. You've made this practice yours and you've made it. And I'm really happy that you're taking care of my patients.
Mm-hmm.
What's even better, just today, I had a conversation with a patient. She's been with me. I've known her for 25 years. And she's like, I remember what it was like. And you've just made this practice so beautiful. And I just can't believe it's 25 years. So, it really rewarding to have those conversations with patients, to see your teenagers grow up, get married, and bring their children in.
Yeah. I remember that well. And it's been almost 10 years since I've sold my practice, and I still get patients calling me today. Okay, MJ, I need someplace else. Okay, MJ, what about this? And should I do that? And I always feel badly, but my transition did not go as well as yours did. So because I started my practice from scratch and I transitioned when I sold it, but unfortunately it did not go as well as yours did.
Well, my transition when I sold it is a story as well. And you let me know when you want to hear that story.
At some point we should talk about that as a separate subject, because I think that there'd be a lot of really great guidance we could provide to young women, but I think that that'll just detract from what we're trying to do today. So definitely let's continue that conversation. Now, you sold the current practice that you're in now, or did you start another practice again?
No, I sold my current practice, and I carefully researched who I sold it to. And, at around maybe 3 years ago, I really was getting tired and fatigued, and I wasn't looking to sell. And I thought I would practice till I was 60, but I'd had a series of maternity leaves. Now, when I talk about maternity leaves, I'm talking about 5 maternity leaves, one after the other. And when you have a highly, yes, and if you have a highly trained team who all learn together, and you are doing dentistry at a certain level, full mouth rehabs, sleep, all those things, and you start to lose people on your team, and you're trying to replace them because they're on maternity leave, and God bless them that they decided, 4 out of the 5 decided they wanted to stay at home with the babies. Like, amazing. Amazing. And I really applaud that. I think it's so fantastic. But then to try and practice at the same level when you are trying to onboard people at different levels was such a challenge. And I was so tired, and it tired out the existing team members, and we were all just on overload. And in the meantime, my husband, back in 2018, I said to him, I'm really struggling now. I don't know if it's just because I've taken on so much. I'm teaching, I'm, faculty for clinical mastery series for sleep group solutions. I'm going here and there and, helping other dentists, and I'm running the practice, but I'm also doing, the QuickBooks and the 401k and all of that. I need help. I don't think I can continue to do this. I want to just practice dentistry. And he was in corporate with so much experience. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to come on board. I will take care of the business side. You do the dentistry. And he came on board. And one of the things which was so great. And for someone who's not even in the business, he learned so quickly. I mean, he was unbelievable. But what his thought is, you are so fatigued, you don't have the team that you need, and it is getting harder and harder to find, those amazing team members, and train them up. And at that time, we actually were approached, I think back in 2019, in January, we were approached with an offer to sell, and we actually didn't take it seriously. But then we got another offer. And so I said to my husband, something, like it's almost like the universe is saying, right, so we should look at it. So early in 2019, we started to look at the offers, and we worked with this great guy from DDS Match, love him, Joe McGonigal. And he sat down with me and he goes, what do you want? Are you ready to sell? What do you want? Do you want an associate? Let's talk about what you want. And he was really amazing at drawing out of me, what did I want to do with the skills and knowledge I had? And I ended up selling the practice, but I'm there as an associate in the practice that I've always been in, using the same technology, seeing the same patients, using the same processes. But I work 3 days a week. I have up to 12 weeks off, and I get to keep my team that I have now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's like the perfect resolution to the fatigue issue, because now all the headaches aren't yours. I think that's one of the biggest things that we don't realize or recognize when we go to buy a practice is the amount of work it really does take in order to run the practice well.
Well, that's the thing. You think it's all clinical, but it's not. You have a clinical hat. You have hours for clinical, but as a woman, and that's what I've been sharing with the dental students that I teach, because now I get to give back. So, on one of the days I go into University of Pennsylvania and I get to be a clinical faculty person there and teach. But I also love, I do talks for the Penn Dental Women, and I just did a talk for the Temple Dental Women Association. But you have to, and they have no idea because they don't teach this at school, but
Mhm.
they have no idea. But you have a clinical hat, and then you have your business hat, and that is actually super important. And I've told every single young dental student and young dentist that I know, you need to know how to do every single administrative process in your office, because you cannot expect to hire someone who may have, a certain amount of schooling, but who does not have a business education, right? Because in our office managers and our administrators are usually moms or, people who've just kind of fallen into that. And now they're your office manager and you're saying, okay, run my practice.
You're absolutely right.
Right. We are giving control of our practices to people who are carrying around what they've learned from other practices, be it good or bad, right? So I tell all of my, mentees and whoever will listen to me, because I love talking, but here, you have to know every single administrative process. You have to ask yourself, how do you want your financial arrangements to be made with your patients? What are you comfortable with? Give those guidelines to the person you're bringing on to have that discussion. How often do you want to run statements? How often do you want to have insurance claims checked? How often are you, wanting for your clinical team to take x-rays and hygiene? Like, you have to know everything of what you want. So, and that's really daunting, right? But if they know ahead of time, they can start thinking as they get out into the, dental world, they can start thinking like, I really need to give more guidance to the people that are working for me.
That's amazing, amazing feedback that you're providing them, and something that many don't realize. And the leadership piece of this, I think, is the critically important piece that's missing. Especially when you have somebody at 22 to 26 years old graduating from dental school. Sure, they've been in college all this time and they've learned a lot and they've, matured, but they don't have any experience working with a team, and especially with women working with other women. That adds a whole other dimension. When it's a male leader versus an all-female staff, it's one thing. But when it's a female leader with an all-female staff, it's totally different.
It's very different. And that's definitely something that I go into with, again, the dentists that I talk to. Men are different. Men don't see a lot of things. They're, like, look at our husbands. A lot of time they're just, oblivious to certain things, it's like, they don't, sometimes my husband doesn't even realize why I'm upset at him. He doesn't think I'm upset at all, right? So men have a different thought process. We women, when we're in an office, we're in there and we know everything. We have to know. It's just our nature, right? So you get to know everything. You have to not be drawn in. You have to learn how to not to be drawn into the drama of the other women. You have to know what the boundaries are. You have to know what your boundaries are. You have to be uncomfortable, or rather, you have to be comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. And you have to be comfortable with that person. Let them sit in their discomfort, because if you try and make them feel better after you've just told them that they had to do something a little differently, you're negating it all. It's like telling your child you've got to eat the broccoli, and the child starts crying and you just go, okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Don't worry about it this time. Well, and they're gonna, what is your team gonna do? Your team wants to help. Yeah. Well, the thing is that as women, we get super friendly and super close. And so what I tell everyone is, you can still be friendly with your team, but you cannot blur the line that makes you the employer and them the employees. Because once you have to hold them accountable, you're lost if you are their friend.
Right.
And, it's a tough line. It's a hard lesson to learn, but once you've learned it, you can have fun with your team. You can do great things. You'll have great energy, but you will not worry about having a conversation when someone's, maybe falling below the performance that is expected of them. And a lot of times, like, it's really you. And I tell my younger colleagues, know yourself. What kind of leader are you? If you're not a leader, that's okay. You'll learn to be, but then start working on that. Take courses, not for just clinical dentistry. Do some, coaching, continuing education. Get a coach.
Get a coach is the most important thing. I agree.
Yeah, get a coach. Work through the things that make you uncomfortable when you have to have that discussion with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like a story. I have a broker that I got friendly with, and she's amazing. And every now and then she'll call me and she'll be like, oh, can you talk to a doctor? She's about to buy a practice and she wants to, and can you recommend a consultant or a coach? And my first question is, okay, what type of personality is she? Is she super confident in herself? Or, is she just looking for practice systems? Or is she someone who is needing help with leadership? Because that's two different, coaches and consultants. So I think younger people, when they're setting out into business of owning, you really have to know yourself.
I agree. So this brings me to wanting to know and understand more about your background as far as, who advised you when you were younger, especially, so many questions came from your story about being in Uganda, then England, and then the United States. First of all, that transition from England to the United States without your family, that must have been really traumatic, number one. And number two, did you lose that? Many times our parents act like a sounding board for us. And with them being so far away, did you find that was a struggle, that you didn't have that anymore?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I was able to call them, but it's not the same. And, when I moved here, I didn't have any family really around me. And it was my husband and all of his family. And they were definitely a lot more traditional. And, I was an Indian daughter-in-law, And so the first 5 years, I truly lost myself. I really didn't know who I was. And the only place that I felt like I knew who I was when I was treating my patients. Yeah, it was at the office. And yeah, and that my patients became my family.
Mm-hmm.
That was, yeah. So it was definitely difficult, that transition.
I can't imagine. So what is the one single best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and who was it from? Was it from a colleague in dentistry, or was it maybe from your parents or your grandfather?
So, this advice actually came from 3 different people at different times. And it was my grandfather the first time, and it was always, whatever you do it right. And if it's not right, admit it and make it right.
That's right.
And then my father, always said the same thing to me as well. Probably got it from, my granddad. And then Bill, the owner, the previous owner of the practice, he drummed it into my head. He goes, Mona, if it's not right, if that crown doesn't fit right,
do it over.
Do it over, and don't charge a patient, but make it right. And so that's the way I have lived. And I'll tell you what, we all think we have to be perfect and know everything. And again, to my younger colleagues, I always say, it's okay not to know everything. And it's okay to be vulnerable with your team and your patients, because they'll love you more for being human. And when I say to a patient, oh, I don't like what I've done. At the beginning, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, they're like, what? And then you explain, and then they come back and they see, that you've made it better. And now, gosh, even after how many years in practice, you're still going to have days where something just doesn't go the way you want it. And now I just say, hey, MJ, I don't like the way this looks on this x-ray. The fit is not what I would want for me. And my patients just look at me and go, okay, I'll just come back.
Yeah, exactly. Because now they know, right? Now they know. Well, I think part of our personality type and the reason, why most dentists come into the profession is that perfectionistic side of our personalities gets drawn to it, I think. And, we work in such a minute world. I think we love that for whatever reason. There's something about our personalities that makes that click for us.
Yeah. And again, that's what it is. You're looking through your loops. And then when you look up after you're doing dentistry, you're looking at everything else under loops. And that has bad and good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Who do you think has made the biggest impact on your life?
My husband. Yeah. And it's interesting because he's not the typical Indian husband. He has supported me in every decision I've made about the practice, but also my own personal growth when it came to learning new things. I went on a CE journey from 2012. I did the SPEAR curriculum. I did the clinical mastery curriculum, and I did over 100 hours of CE in the last 2 years for sleep apnea. And he has never questioned that. And in fact, he celebrates that I have the knowledge and the skills and what I do for patients. So just having his full support has been, the biggest, I think, impact on my life, because I've never had the feeling of like, I can't do that, because he's always there to say you can.
So I want you to share something with your husband, because not in all of the interviews that I've done so far has anyone ever said their spouse. So whatever this man has and whatever he shares with you, it's amazing. And you should really share with him that feedback, because it's an incredible human being that he must be. He must be.
Yeah, I mean, and he's done the same for both our daughters. I mean, he's just always there to say, yeah, it can be done.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'll share. Yeah. And then, after that, I think clinical mastery series with John Nosty, Jason Lelitsky, Jen Janicki. Jen Janicki is the course director for that. And they had a huge impact on the learning, but also the implementation of that kind of dentistry, which is TMD, occlusion, full mouth rehab, and veneers into my practice. But what was the way that they teach, it instilled so much confidence and leadership in me that it made a huge impact on how my practice went. So much so that from being a mentor for them, I'm now the director of the sleep course there. And and because of that, I've gone on, I'm co-presenting a lecture at the American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine about obstructive sleep apnea and how it particularly affects women who are so underdiagnosed, because people are not aware of the connection with older women, with younger women, and sleep-related breathing disorders. And so Jen Janicki was one of the people who really gave me a lot of confidence in myself. And then the clinical faculty, John Nosty and Jason Olitsky were amazing at teaching me the skills that I needed clinically and, in leadership. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing. That's a lot of CE. I'm a CE attendee as well. And I have done, Dawson, you name it. And it takes a lot of time and effort and money to invest in yourself that way. However, I didn't feel there was any other way to do it, just like you.
You just have to go there, but you have to also give yourself time and make a plan on how you're going to implement it into your practice. And I see so many of our colleagues who are looking for something that they're missing in their practice, and they just keep going to the CEs and going, but not giving themselves a chance to take a step back, process and integrate it into their office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you look back on your life, do you consider yourself to be an extremely confident woman, or do you think that that's something that you developed over time?
I developed that over time. Hey, listen, I'm actually an introvert.
I wouldn't know it.
You would not know it, right? Now everyone laughs when I say that, but I'm happy at home, with my meditation, my spiritual books, my gardening, my crystals, whatever, right? But confidence comes with time. Confidence comes from knowing who you are and knowing that whatever you do, you're always doing it with the best of your intention. Mm-hmm. And that gives you that inner, confidence. And that's what I tell. So I had a dental student the other day, and she was struggling because the patient, she kept saying the patient's really high maintenance, and the patient's energy was making her nervous. And she's like, oh, she should be in a private practice. And I'm like, hey, stop, listen. Anything that you're doing for that patient, number one, you're doing with your best intention. Mm-hmm. You're not going there to do something that's not right. Your intention is to do the best that you can with what you know for this patient. But remember, it's the patient's choice to come to the dental school. So it's her choice to come here for someone to learn on her. So go learn. Don't worry about her.
And how did that change the student's mood? Did it help her?
Yeah, at the end of the afternoon, she did. She goes, Dr. I learned so much on patient management from you in that 2 hours compared to, any time before. Because as women, we have a tendency to take on the other person's urgency or energy. So we react to it, and we just have to learn that's not your emotion, that's theirs, and you got to separate it.
I do remember doing that many times in my own private practice, and you're absolutely right. You have to separate yourself from that. I don't know if Penn has a wellness program, but we actually had the first wellness program for dental students in the country at Tufts, and it was started by Dr. Christina Paston. And she teaches all of our students to meditate, and once a week she's doing yoga with them. And so it's critically important to learn how to manage yourself during those stressful times.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a great, I learned my techniques from Dr. Fern White, who does a program for dentists, female dentists. She's based out of Australia. And it's called Practice Your Passion. And it really is about going in and how do you change your state from being to, going with the flow. And it's just simple things. I tell my team, I'm like, hey, listen, when you're coming to tell me something about a patient, just give me the facts. Don't give me your story about your interaction. Just give me the facts, because I don't want to take on your energy and then have an interaction with a patient that's not authentically me, And so they've learned, and it's just even simple things like taking a break and moving, jumping jacks or doing a silly dance in your office, but you can change it. Or if you're going to do a big full mouth rehab case, it's like psyching yourself up and going, yeah, I have this, I've got this. And really letting your cheerleader voice, talk louder than your gremlin voice. And yeah. So yeah, no, to your question, no, I wasn't super confident. And, even now, like, I'll still fall into the imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? Like, but as you get older and as you have more experience, you realize that there's so many things that you can share, like your mistakes or challenges that you faced. When you story tell that, it actually can help people. And that's what, when I meet with these young dental students, it literally reminds me of sitting around a fire and passing on those stories, right? And then, suddenly it's made someone change their thought process.
It's great. It's great. So I just want to end with one thing, that everybody would be surprised to know about you.
Oh, sure. I'm a huge Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel fan. I collected Marvel comics. Yeah, I have a lightsaber. I have my Yoda dolls right over there. And this is my office in my basement, but I have in my basement a wall of all the Marvel comics and characters.
Wow.
And
where did that start?
Gosh, when I was a kid, and I still love it. Like anything that's, anything to do with sci-fi. Oh my gosh, I love it. And maybe that's why I got the technology in my office, because I'm like, but yeah, like I really love. And if I could be a superhero, and this is crazy because I've actually thought about this, I would be Wolverine on the outside, but Yoda on the inside, and I would be wisdom with claws. Wisdom with paws. I love it. With claws. I love it. I think that's a great way to end this. Oh my gosh, Mona, that is awesome. I cannot thank you enough. I think that we could probably spend another hour and a half talking, because we have so much in common and so much to share. I would love to connect with you again on possibly talking about what it's like to transition a practice and some experiences that you might be able to shed some light on, because I too have some experiences that might be helpful to women that are about ready to transition. Yeah, I really would like to share my experience, because there's things that I could have done better to make it smoother, and also just managing expectations and asking yourself certain questions before you go into that transition. So I'd love to share my experience. Then we're going to talk again. So Mona, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with the audience. Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the Women in Dentistry podcast with Dr. MJ Hanlon. If you like our show and want to know more about us, check out our website, thewomenindentistry.com, or please leave us a review on iTunes. Join us for our next episode as we bring you another amazing woman leading the way for the next generation.